Every great conversation begins between two thoughts.
Okay, I need to confess something. And I need you to not judge me.
This is becoming a theme with you.
I know. But this one is... Okay. So yesterday, someone cut me off on the motorway. Just pulled in front of me with no indication. And I reacted, loudly, with words I would genuinely never say to another human being in any normal situation. Words I didn't even know I still knew.
How loudly?
Loud enough that I scared myself a little afterwards. Because I sat there, heart pounding, and thought, who was that? That was not me. I had a full conversation with a stranger at the coffee shop this morning. Friendly, patient, warm. And then 30 minutes later, I was genuinely furious at a car.
Not a person. A car.
That's the thing, isn't it? I wasn't angry at a person. I couldn't even see the person. I was angry at a silver hatchback.
And that distinction, that you were angry at a car and not a person, is actually the key to understanding everything that happened in your brain in that moment. Because what you experienced is not a character flaw. It is not evidence that you have hidden anger issues. It is a neurological phenomenon so predictable and so well documented that researchers have a specific name for it.
Tell me.
Deindividuation. Specifically, what some researchers call visual deindividuation in a driving context. And to understand why it happens, you have to understand something about how the human brain was built and what it was never built to handle.
It wasn't built for cars.
Not even close. The human brain evolved over millions of years to navigate a world of faces, of bodies, of eye contact and micro-expressions and physical proximity, and all the thousands of tiny social signals that tell us who we're dealing with. Whether they're a threat, whether they're human, whether they deserve our empathy or our alarm. All of that information, all of that social processing, depends on seeing another person's face.
And inside a car, you can't see any of it.
Almost none of it. And this is where the brain does something extraordinary and extraordinarily problematic. Because you cannot see the other driver's face clearly, and they cannot see yours. The normal social feedback loop that regulates behavior in face-to-face interactions simply doesn't function the same way. The brain, operating on ancient hardware, does not fully register the car as containing a human being. What it registers instead is a large, fast-moving metallic object entering and violating your personal space. Without the face, without the eyes, without the physical vulnerability of another human body, the social empathy circuitry simply does not fire the way it would in any other context.
So my brain, in that moment, genuinely wasn't processing the other driver as a full human being the way it would if we were standing face to face.
Research suggests significantly less so. And here is where it connects to something you might not expect. This maps almost perfectly onto what social psychologists have documented in online behavior. The same person who would never tell a stranger to their face that they're a worthless idiot will type it without hesitation into a comments section. The mechanism is identical. Anonymity removes the social feedback that normally regulates human aggression. Behind a windshield, just like behind a screen, the ordinary constraints of human social behavior stop functioning at full capacity.
Road rage is basically the original internet comment section.
That is, yes. Actually, yes. The de-individuation that happens in a car predates the internet by decades, but the psychology is the same. Remove the face, remove the physical presence, remove the social accountability, and something in the human brain shifts. The inhibitions that govern behavior in direct social contact weaken, and older, more primitive responses, territorial responses, threat responses, move closer to the surface.
The territorial thing. Because driving does feel territorial, doesn't it? Like, this is my lane, my space, my road almost.
And that feeling has a neurological basis. Drivers frequently consider their vehicles to be extensions of themselves. When they perceive that the actions of others pose a threat to their control or personal space, they respond defensively. The car becomes a kind of second skin, a physical extension of personal identity and personal space. And a violation of that space, someone cutting in front of you, is processed not just as an inconvenience, but as a direct intrusion on the self.
So the cutoff isn't just, someone took my lane. It's, someone invaded me.
At a subconscious level, that is closer to how the brain experiences it. And then the amygdala fires. When a driver sees an offensive gesture or a threat on the road, it activates the amygdala, the part of the brain that processes threats and emotional responses. This triggers the fight or flight response, leading to impulsive and aggressive reactions rather than rational decision-making. And remember, the prefrontal cortex, the rational thinking brain, is already under significant cognitive load from the act of driving itself. Monitoring speed, watching other vehicles, reading signs, making constant micro-decisions. It has less spare capacity to moderate the emotional response coming from the amygdala.
So driving already has the rational brain busy, and then something threatening happens, and the emotional brain fires, and there's nobody at the controls with enough capacity to say, wait, this is just a car. This person probably didn't even notice what they did.
Exactly. And that attribution piece, what we assume about the other driver's intention, is critical. Research on aggressive driving consistently shows that people experiencing road rage almost universally attribute hostile intent to the other driver. The perceived intentionality, inconsideration, and directedness of others' behaviors exhibited strong relationships with hostile aggressive driving behavior and the desire for vengeance. So the person who cut you off, you didn't just experience it as an accident. Some part of your brain decided they did that on purpose. They disrespected me. They thought they could just take my space.
And once I've decided it was intentional, the anger has a target and a justification.
And the absence of the face makes it worse. Because if you could see the other driver, if you could see that they looked flustered or distracted or immediately regretful, the empathy circuit would likely fire, and the anger would soften. But you can't see any of that. So the brain fills in the gap with the worst available interpretation. Hostile intent, deliberate disrespect, and the rage that follows feels, in that moment, completely justified.
Because the brain built the story, and then reacted to the story it built.
In real time, at 60 miles an hour, with no opportunity for the rational mind to intervene before the emotional response is already running. And this is compounded by something researchers call moral disengagement. Research combined experimental studies with driving simulators found that moral disengagement and anger rumination are psychological triggers of road rage in real-time driving. Moral disengagement is the psychological process by which people temporarily suspend their normal ethical standards when they feel sufficiently provoked or anonymous. Inside the car, already de-individuated, already attributing hostile intent, the moral disengagement is almost automatic. The normal rules of how I treat other human beings, briefly, don't feel like they apply.
Which is why I said, things I would genuinely never say to anyone's face. Because in that moment, behind that windshield, the rules had changed without me noticing.
Without you choosing. That's the important distinction. This was not a decision. It was a neurological cascade. Threat detected, amygdala fires, rational brain occupied, face missing, social empathy deactivated, moral constraints loosened, anger expressed. In the space of seconds, before the part of you that is calm and polite and thoughtful even had time to show up.
And then afterwards, when I'm sitting in the car still slightly shaking, that part shows up. And it looks at what just happened and goes, what was that?
Because the cascade is over. The prefrontal cortex is back online. The amygdala has settled. And you are now, again, the person you recognize, looking back at a few seconds of behavior that didn't look like you. Because neurologically, in those seconds, it genuinely wasn't the full you. It was a much older, much more primitive version. One that didn't have the social context to know it was dealing with another human being who was probably just in a hurry, or distracted, or having a terrible day.
Just like I've been, in a hurry or distracted, on the road before.
Almost certainly. And probably cut someone off without noticing, who then, in their car, had their own version of what you had yesterday.
That's actually a really uncomfortable thought. That somewhere there's a person who had a rage moment because of something I did accidentally, and didn't even know about.
The road is full of people being enraged by each other's accidental behavior, and none of them can see each other's faces, which is the fundamental design flaw of the whole system from a neurological standpoint. We put human beings, with social brains built for face-to-face interaction, inside metal boxes that strip away all the social information those brains need to function at their most humane. And then we're surprised when the result is occasionally not our most humane behavior.
So is there anything that actually helps in the moment?
The research points to a few things that genuinely interrupt the cascade. The first, and it connects directly to what we discussed in our conversation about panic and social anxiety, is the physiological pause. Studies show that consciously pausing before reacting, even for a few seconds, can prevent an emotional outburst and stop the situation from escalating. The pause creates just enough space for the prefrontal cortex to re-engage. And a re-engaged prefrontal cortex can ask, was that actually intentional? Do I know that? And usually, the honest answer is no.
The pause gives the rational brain time to catch up with the emotional one,
which is running significantly faster in the moment. The second thing, and this one is surprisingly effective, is humanizing the other driver deliberately, actively. Before the brain fills in the story with hostile intent, you fill it in yourself with something more accurate. That person is probably distracted, late for something, having a difficult day, did not do that to me personally, does not know I exist, has their own version of me, the driver who occasionally cuts someone off without noticing.
Give the faceless car a human being inside it, even when you can't see them.
Deliberately restore the social context the environment removed. And something interesting happens neurologically. The empathy circuit, which the deindividuation suppressed, begins to reactivate, even slightly, even imperfectly, enough to reduce the hostile attribution, enough to bring the anger down from threat level to inconvenience level, which is, honestly, what most driving incidents actually are.
Inconveniences that the brain promoted to threats, because it lost the face.
Always because of the face. And the third thing, research on mindfulness and driving is surprisingly robust. Both general mindfulness and mindful awareness specifically exhibited strong negative relationships with aggressive driving behavior. People who practice regular mindfulness, who have trained the prefrontal cortex to remain more present and less reactive, show measurably lower levels of driving aggression. Not because the provocations stop happening, but because the gap between stimulus and response is slightly wider. And in that slightly wider gap, there is just enough room for the thinking brain to arrive before the ancient one has already committed to something.
The gap between something happening and the reaction is where behavior is actually chosen. And mindfulness widens that gap.
Even slightly, even imperfectly, but enough. And here is the thing that I find most important about all of this. The road rage moment, as uncomfortable and as alien to our self-image as it feels, is not revealing something dark and hidden about your character. It is revealing how extraordinarily dependent human social behavior is on context, on information, on the face of the person in front of you. Remove that context, as a car does, and even the most warm and considered people will occasionally produce behavior that surprises them. Not because they are secretly something else, but because the brain without the face simply cannot fully access the version of itself that is warm and considered and fully human.
We need each other's faces to be our best selves.
More than we realize. And perhaps that, more than anything else about this conversation, is worth sitting with. That the face of another person is not just social information. It is the primary cue that activates our empathy, our restraint, our recognition of shared humanity. Remove it, and something older and less careful takes its place. Which is as true on the road as it is online. As true in any context where we interact with others without fully seeing them.
The next time it happens, and it will happen, and you find yourself in the middle of a rage you don't quite recognize, remember, your brain lost the face. And without the face, it defaulted to threat. And threat is older and faster than compassion. But compassion is available, even in the car, even at speed. You just have to give it a fraction of a second longer than the anger asked for.
The person in that car cut you off. They also have a face, and a day, and a story, and probably at some point a moment on the road where they were you, and someone else was them. Give the face back. even when you can't see it. That small act of imagination, that deliberate humanizing of the faceless, might be one of the most genuinely civilized things you can do at 60 miles an hour.
The silver hatchback had a human inside it.
They always do.
Thank you for being here with us today. This one explains something I've wondered about for a long time.
If this gave you something real to think about next time you're behind the wheel, share it with someone who also occasionally doesn't recognize themselves in traffic.
And our question before you go.
Have you ever had a road rage moment that surprised you, where you reacted in a way that didn't feel like you? And looking back, what do you think was actually happening?
Tell us in the comments. No judgment. We've all been the silver hatchback at some point.
Until next time.
Stay curious, stay kind, and on the road, give them back their face.